House GOP candidate calls for Texas-wide ban on Chinese students. A Texas Republican candidate for the House of Representatives has ignited controversy after calling for a ban on Chinese students from universities in the state. Chinese students should be banned from attending all universities, Shelley Luther originally wrote in a revised tweet. Oh, so she changed the words. And she put, "No more communists." In subsequent tweets, Luther went on to say the state's taxpayers should not be subsidizing the next generation of CCP Chinese Communist Party leaders, and that it is common sense that CCP members should not have access to our schools. Luther, a hairdresser, made headlines in 20. She's a hairdresser. She needs to get her head examined, right? Made headlines in 2020 when she refused to close her Dallas salon amid emergency orders, according to the Texas Tribune. She ended up spending 2 nights in jail. On January 7, Representative Jean Wu, a Chinese-American Democrat from Houston, called Luther's tweet racist and demanded a public apology. Luther's statements are ignorant, hateful, and incite violence against not only Chinese Americans, but all Asian Americans, Wu said, citing the spike in anti-Asian incidents amid the COVID-19 pandemic to casually conflate all Chinese students in America with actual registered members of the ruling party in the People's Republic of China is not only ignorance of an extreme nature, it's also the type of rhetoric that drives anti-Asian hate crimes. In response to Wu's statements, Luther posted tweets accusing him of simping for the CCP and calling him an enemy of the people. It doesn't surprise me that a socialist Democrat who doesn't show up for work thinks the position that communist Chinese citizens should not access taxpayer-funded state institutions is racist. Texas Republicans agree with me on this, Luther wrote. One Texas House Republican appeared to oppose Luther's claim. Representative J.C. Jetton, who is Asian American, tweeted that their party should stand against canceling Chinese students on college campuses. To do otherwise is an attempt to score cheap political points by targeting Chinese people. But real leaders know there's a huge distinction between Chinese individuals and the Chinese government, Jetton wrote. Luther vehemently denied that she was being racist. As far as anyone thinking that I'm racist, I'm a Spanish teacher of 13 years. And in my salon, when I opened it, I was the sole white person that worked in there out of 19, she said, according to the Tribune News Service. So, me being called a racist is ridiculous. I do not agree with communist thinking, and I do not want our state to be run, or I do not want our state to be influenced by communism. Luther, however, has previously engaged in other forms of anti-China rhetoric, referring to COVID-19 as the China virus. On Sunday, Luther's remarks have already caught the attention of Chinese state media. On Sunday, Global Times published an op-ed claiming that they were clearly more ideological Luther's rhetoric was made to confuse the public and further sow seeds of hatred for Chinese students and Chinese Americans among voters in Texas, Global Times said. So let's try and break this down here now. All right. She said that she was a Spanish teacher, right? I'm trying to figure this out. As far as anyone thinking that I'm a racist, I'm a Spanish teacher of 13 years, and in my salon, when I opened it, I was the sole white person that worked in there out of 19. Right? So she was the only white person out of 19 people working in the salon. I don't see how she can she can make an argument that doesn't mean she's racist. And she's using the word Spanish, you know. I'm a Spanish teacher of 13 years. What does that have to do with being racist, that you teach Spanish? Yeah, what does that mean? So it means that because you teach Spanish, you can't be racist? That doesn't make any sense. You know, as far as, let me go back up to the top here, where she said Chinese students should be banned from attending all Texas universities. Shelley Luther originally wrote and since revised tweet, no more coming here. I remember when I was in college, I attended Long Island University, and back in the days, back then, you know, well, that was my first time really. You get to mingle with like foreign students, yeah, because in high school, okay, it was mostly like Americans. Some people immigrated here, but then at that university, I encountered people from other countries, and I remember there was a Chinese young lady. She was going to college, and she invited me over. She was staying at the dorm. Her roommate also was a Chinese student. And I went up there, we sat down, we talked, and she was telling me, see, back in those days, I didn't even know, you know. Now, as I'm older, I know the difference. But she was telling me that, you know, she said, we are both Chinese, but I can't understand her language, and she can't understand mine. So that was interesting because, you know, when you're young, you think, well, you know, they're Chinese, they should understand each other, but no. So that was kind of an eye-opener. And I believe she was from Taiwan, you know. And by the way, they're Chinese from all over the place. Years ago, there was a young lady who stayed by me. She was working au pair out in California. I knew from online, and she asked me, she wanted to come to New York. She wanted to visit and see New York. And she asked if she can stay over here. And I said, sure. But even though she was Chinese, she wasn't from Taiwan. She wasn't from the People's Republic. She was from Malaysia. See? Totally different. So they're Chinese from all over the world. And she speaks English, of course. Her English is good. So my point here is this is really, really ignorant, you know? And to say no more communists, it doesn't mean because somebody is a Chinese student, that means they're from the People's Republic of China, the PRC, the one with the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. That's not the case at all. So that's really ignorance. And also, she's saying, well, no more, and she's saying, well, no more Chinese, and at the same time she's talking about the state of Texas would have to like supplement. That's not really true because if you're a foreign student, you have to show. Okay, I did some paperwork for somebody. Well, she wasn't Chinese. She was from Thailand, and she was coming here to go to an English school, and you have to do the immigration paperwork. So I did it for her, and they ask all kinds of questions, and you have to show like a statement how you could support yourself and so forth. No, you're not gonna get anything like support from the state. Just come in here. You're not gonna get that at all. If you're from even here in the United States, if you're from out of state, let's say for example, you coming to study in like New York, right? You're not a resident of New York, and depending on the college, they may charge you extra, like especially if it's like the state of the city university, SUNY State University of New York, CUNY City University of New York, and you're not a resident from here, and you applying to come here into the state of New York to study at city university or state university, they charge you more money. Even though you could be from Texas, you could be from, I don't know, Arizona, one of those other states. Yeah, that's how it works. They're not going to supplement you because those are state and city colleges, university system. So they put in money in. So for Chinese people coming here to the United States to study, they're not going to get any breaks. As a matter of fact, the universities, they really had a problem when they had this immigration issue under Trump, when Trump wasn't allowing people in from certain countries or what have you, because now we go beyond the Chinese. We're talking about like people from Iran and some other countries like in Africa, like Sudan, for example, where when Trump had his Muslim ban, that was another issue. So these people are actually bringing in money to the university, because it's like, okay, you have all these universities in America, and it's like, we have a good system here. People believe that if you get educated in America and you get a degree from an American university, let's say you go to let's see, UCLA, for example, right? University of California, Los Angeles. Or maybe, let's see, University of Southern California, USC. All these universities attract people from other countries. Also Texas, like in Austin, Texas, for example. They have universities over there that attract people from foreign countries, like Chinese and so forth. So these universities are dependent on foreigners to come in. And if you were to speak to any administrator in these universities, even like especially in Texas, they're going to say, well, this woman is really ignorant. She doesn't know what she's talking about, because they depend on having like foreigners come in and pay, because some Americans are never going to go to college. Some may pick up a trade or what have you, and have no intention of going to university. And universities tend to be expensive too. So if people are bringing in foreign money, yeah. So you have private universities too, like in Texas. They're not gonna be supplementing people who are foreigners. Foreigners come in, and you have to sign those immigration forms, and you have to show that it's like you're bonded. When you come here, you can't be dependent. You can't say, well, okay, I've fallen hard time. No. You have to be able to show up front that you have enough money, so just in case something happens, that you wouldn't become a burden on the like the state government, the city government, or wherever, or the United States government looking for money or handout or like food stamps or something like that. So this lady is she's totally out of order. She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. You know? And as I said, I remember student like the Chinese student, the one who was attending LIU with me. You know, and in those days I didn't even know the difference. I thought it was all, if you're Chinese, you spoke the same language. But no, she told me. And then I didn't even ask her. She told me. She said, we're both Chinese, but I can't understand her language. And she can't understand my language. Back then, I probably was, I don't know, maybe 19, 20 years old. So we're going back a long time in history. So that was like news to me, you see. So now, Representative Jean Wu, a Chinese American Democrat from Houston, called her out as racist, and she's attacking Lu, saying Luther's when you say Luther's statements ignorant, hateful, and incite violence against not only Chinese Americans but all Asian Americans, Wu said, citing the spike in anti-Asian incidents amid COVID-19 pandemic. To casually conflate all Chinese students in America with actual registered members of the ruling party in the People's Republic of China is not only ignorance of an extreme nature, is also the type of rhetoric. Another problem too, well, I say problem, I use that word kind of like liberally there, but another issue too is that to some Americans, they don't have the ability to tell the difference between different groups, like who's Chinese or what have you, somebody who could be Chinese, or somebody who may be born here in America, grew up here, has nothing to do with China, the mainland, but yet people think they're a foreigner, because that's an issue right there. Because for some Asians, it's like you're the perpetual foreigner. People see you as exotic, and that becomes an issue right there, and that can have like a negative drawback in a way too. You see, so people may just look at somebody and say, "Oh, this person is is Chinese." That's Chinese is like the default. They're not sure, well, what they should go to. It's just they're not really thinking outside the box to say, well, this person could be Korean, they could be, I don't know, they could be Thai. No. It's like they go right to it. Like I saw, there was another article here. There was this man, this one right here. You see, this is another case of ignorance right here. Korean American woman spit on, called a carrier, a New York City subway. See, this is more ignorance right here. And this guy looks like a grandfather. You'd think you'd think somebody's young who's doing this nonsense. He's wearing jerseys here that's out of New Orleans. A Korean American woman reportedly fell victim to an anti-Asian incident in New York City that was not investigated as a hate crime for months until a recent panel recommendation. The incident, which was caught on video and posted on Twitter, occurred on the A train between 34th and 42nd Street on October 5th, 2021. according to ABC News reporter Sifan Kim. I know Sifan Kim. He's a Korean reporter, Korean American. In the video, a man can be seen standing up from his seat and approaching the camera to make loose gestures and remarks. "You are effing bomb. Kiss my ass, kiss my ass, kiss my ass," yelled the man, who was wearing a red hoodie and ripped jeans. "F you," he shot, continued. "Who wants to touch you, you miserable effing carrier?" The video ends with the man spitting twice in front of the camera. Kim reported that detectives have refused to include the man's mention of carrier in the report, while the city's hate crimes task force told the victim that the incident was not a hate crime. Let me just stop there. The fact that he's using the word carrier, again, you use the word default. The default comes in. He's using, he left out the term Asian, but that's what he means. You see, because he's using default. So he went up to this person and called her a carrier. Well, who been, for the last 2 years or so forth, who been under fire, being accused of carrying diseases or viruses or so forth, COVID, right? Asian people been under attack. So that's what it really comes down to. And the fact that the police can't distinguish that and say this is not a hate crime, no. Something is wrong there. In a tweet, the appalled victim claimed that the matter was not pursued as a hate crime because the pup didn't call me Asian carrier. No, that's the default right in there. He called her car. How many of the people who go around calling carrier? And the reason he called him carrier is because he's talking about COVID. That's why. And there's a connection. Somebody like him believes with somebody who's Asian, even though really many people think, well, it's Chinese, but some people can't really tell the difference. So they just go with the default. And she makes her comment here. Her name is Esther Lee. None, he said he would not amend my report, even though I wrote it in my personal statement. He said that because the pup didn't call me Asian carrier, the use of the word Asian, it was not a hate crime. I was appalled. Kim later took to Twitter to report that the incident is now being investigated as a hate crime upon the recommendation of a civilian hate crime review panel. Well, you know what it is. That's typical police in New York. The police here tend to downplay something. If somebody stole money out of your house, they'll put it as, missing items or what have you. So that way they lower their crime statistics. That's a common technique that the police use. No? Somebody steals your car, it's not going to be grand auto theft or something like that. It's probably like teenagers' misuse of your vehicle. You see, some teenagers will enjoy riding with your vehicle, so they won't see that as grand larceny, grand auto theft, or so forth. And that's the way they deal with crime statistics to keep crime low in New York. That's why when you look at the subway and you see all the crazy stuff that's going on, and there was another incident a couple of weeks ago where there's this woman from Thailand. She came here, I think, just like my friend from Thailand came here to go to some English school. But this one was in New York, and she was a victim. She went to see some kind of a Thai rap show in Manhattan, and this was late at night. She was out there like maybe after 2, 3 in the morning going home. I don't know. Even me, I would even want to even be out there at that time unless I'm coming in and, let's say I'm coming in the Greyhound bus or something, and if for some reason it's late and it came into New York really, really late, that's the only time you're going to see me out there. And she was like, I think like maybe 22 years old. And some guy came behind her and punched her out, looking for her money, take her money. Yeah, he wrestled her down to the ground. And the thing is, it's all on video. You see all this in video, yeah. She had her face all bruised up and so forth. And then she was on, I think she was in Channel 11 later on, where she gave like an interview. She's also like a model. Yeah. So I'm like, oh my God. And I sent it to one of my friends who lives in Florida. She's from Thailand. To say, look at what's going on. I mean, you got to tell people, if you from places like Thailand and with all this crazy stuff going on with anti-Asian and so forth, the last thing you want to do is be walking, be in the subway at 2:30 a.m. in the morning, No, you don't want to do that because you can become a victim. And even in Thailand, and I've been there, they have subways and the BTS, which is the above ground one, and they shut down by midnight. They don't even run after midnight. No, they don't. I think they start up maybe after 6 or after 5 in the morning. They start up, but they shut down. Now, Mexico City, I was in Mexico City back in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. And believe it or not, Mexico City is like one of the safest cities in the world, even though you see a lot of crazy stuff happening in Mexico. And in Mexico City, when you get in the subway, there's a certain section where it's divided, mujeres and hombres. Hombres for men, mujeres for women, mujeres, and so forth. Niños for children. They go in one direction. So women and children go in one direction. Hombres, men, go in another direction. So they're divided up. You're not getting the same section with women on the subway. Now, I got into an incident there, which I'm not going to get into in this video. But that's how it is. And in every station, you have the police. There are police in every subway station you enter in Mexico City. So, unlike in New York City, where you have so many subway stations and you have crime going on, and the police always say, well, we have cameras in every station, so if you commit a crime, expect we're going to come looking for you. So that's the message here in New York, If you go down in the subway, prepare to become a victim of crime. They're not going to tell you that, but I'm going to tell you that, okay? And good luck, because the police care more about statistics and they care more about, downgrading crime. And that's what makes them get a good image of having a safer city, by downgrading the crime. To me, I've seen too much crime going on in the subways, and that's really, really unfortunate and ridiculous. The Thai woman who was down there at that time of the night, I would have advised her, don't do it. Do not go down there by yourself. And if you have an Uber, if you can get Uber, you're an account, best to take an Uber and go home. Even though Queens is far from Manhattan, the distance, still, it would be worth it. You have a night out, save up some money, and just pay an Uber to take you home safely. You don't want to be riding the subways at that time. And at that time in the morning, you have to wait a long, long time to get a train. And if you need a transfer, even worse. It's going to take you another long time too. So it's not worth it at all. If you go to see a show, it's best to get out there and find somebody in the community. Or like in the case of the Thai people, they usually have temples. You go to one of those temples and you make an announcement and see if you can find somebody from one of the temples, a Buddhist person who's willing to go with you to see that show. Don't go by yourself. Yeah, that's my advice. Do not travel there by yourself. It's really not worth it.